Next week will commemorate 50 years since the victory of the people of Israel against sworn enemies from all sides. And it's important to review those events so that one understands the significance. I was among 32 boys who had passports from France, Britain, Canada, and the United States in 1967. I received 2 communications from the State Department. One was a written letter, an aerogram, and the other was a telegram. Each one of them stating that it looks like there's going to be a war. And were there to be a war, they could not ensure my safety, and suggested that I leave Israel. I, of course, did not go. The question is why? Why didn't I go? Why did I stay in 1967, despite the fact that the State Department had won me, despite the fact that my father sent me letters, and these letters could have melted the heart of a person of stone, pleading with me to come home. I heard from some of the boys who were there that their father had asked the Rebbe, and asked the Rebbe if the child would be best to go back to America. There were those who asked the Rebbe, there were Bachrim, there were boys who were in Yerushalayim, in Jerusalem, in Torah Emes. The yeshiva was only about 500 yards from no man's land, about a quarter of a mile away from the Jordanian, where the Jordanians would shoot anybody if they got too close. And they asked the Rebbe if the boys in Torah Emes should go to Kfar Chabad, which was further away from the initial conflict. And the Rebbe answered, no, let them study Torah v'shkida v'asmoder, and nothing will happen to them. In one conversation, the Rebbe said, the Shver, my father-in-law, came to me and promised me that nothing would happen to them. There was a neighbor of my uncle's. Her name was Rishalane, is Rishalane. And she was supposed to marry her Bashert, Zevel Katz, Rabbi Zev Katz. And the wedding was supposed to be right after Shavuos. 2 weeks before the wedding, a few days before the onset of the war, the father-in-law, the future father-in-law, asked the Rebbe if they should bring the Kala to America and have the wedding in America. And the Rebbe said, no, the wedding will be in time in Eretz Yisrael. Now, either the Rebbe had knowledge from another world, or these responses would be among the most irresponsible responses ever. We accepted the Rebbe's words without any question, and the Rebbe said to different people who came along that one of the boys, I believe it was Spector, he was an only son, and his cousin came to see the Rebbe and asked the Rebbe, send him home, he's an only child, he's an only son. And the Rebbe answered, I have thousands of only sons in Eretz Yisrael. Meaning every chosid, everyone who wrote a letter to the Rebbe, he considered an only child. And the Rebbe said to this cousin who worked in the United Nations ambassador of the United States, Arthur Goldberg. He was a member of Arthur Goldberg's staff. And the Rebbe told that cousin of Mr. Spector that Israel is at the verge of the greatest victory it has had since the Maccabees, since Hanukkah. And of course, a week later, everybody saw the vision and the knowledge that the Rebbe had, and the lack of faith that other rabbis, other religious leaders, that they had had. After the fact, everybody got on board and said, oh, we knew that there was going to be a victory. But I was there in Eretz Yisrael, and I didn't read the papers, but they showed us the articles. The only one who emphatically stated that there was going to be a victory was said, Hinei lo yonam v'lo yishin shomer Yisrael. He said that there would be no slumbering of the guardian of Israel. The only one who predicted a victory and the magnitude that the Rebbe said, and it would be an immediate victory because the wedding, the Lane Katz wedding, took place a couple of days after Shavuos, and I heard the words that the Rebbe had promised to Rabbi Katz from the mouth of Rabbi Yosef Weinberg, who publicized those words. One of the Shefa Barachas that you could hear on Ramkol, you could hear that on a loudspeaker from the shul, from the new shul in Kfar Chabad. I heard the voice, I heard the talk. I was coming home for lunch to my uncle's, and there was a Suda, and Rabbi Yosef Weinberg was speaking, saying how the Rebbe had a major portion in this wedding, that he had prophesied that the wedding would be in time. No one in Israel anticipated that there would be a minimal of loss of life. Casualties were minimal, and the victory was so emphatic and so clear. Where did this knowledge come from? Unless the Rebbe knew for sure, absolutely sure, by divine intervention, he had endangered dozens of his followers, students, endangered a Kala before her marriage, promised the entire people of Israel that they were ready to be protected and there was nothing to worry about. The lone voice at a time when hundreds of students, hundreds of Talmidim from different yeshivas, whoever was able to traveled back. They all went, on Elal went home. Oh, they were sure nothing would happen, but they went home anyway. There were rabbis who left Eretz Yisrael fearful that there would be another Holocaust. I don't blame them. But there was only one Rebbe, only one voice, who saw clearly that there would be a tremendous victory and that this would be the greatest victory since Hanukkah, which is exactly what happened. And this dovetails with what we talked about. Kol haloimid Torah lishmo, whoever learns Torah for its own sake. I was told by Rav Brisman, who's a son-in-law of Rabbi Yolis, I was told by Rabbi Brisman that one time he was looking in a sefer during Mincha, instead of concentrating on the words of prayer, and Rabbi Yolis was angry with him. You're not supposed to study at a time when you're praying. He says, who do you think you are? Such a masmid like the Lubavitcher Rebbe? People don't realize the tremendous, tremendous devotion to the study of Torah that the Rebbe had through his lifetime. It's not difficult to be a great student of Torah if all you do is sitting at a table. It looks like you're studying. But it's a lot harder when you have a schedule, you have a job, you've got questions, people ask you questions, and advice, and you've got to spend hours and hours telling people what they should do, giving them blessings, and giving them direction and hope. And yet every second that the Rebbe had, we saw tremendous devotion to the words of Torah. And for those who are skeptics, I studied with some great minds in Chaim Berlin, with all the Iluyim of that generation. I studied with them. I studied with some Iluyim in RJJ. And I studied with some very, very extremely bright Hasidim. And the Hasidim were not less bright than the Iluyim in other places. And the Hasidic boys were big lamdanim. We never ever saw lamdas like the Rebbe. Clarity, creativity, organization, thorough analysis like that of the Rebbe. The reason why some people think, oh, he wasn't a great scholar, is because he made everything look so simple, sound so simple. But those who were in the know that far from simple. He just made it sound simple. This is a Rebbe who knew the Torah, and therefore, Megalin Loi, Rosi Torah, the secrets of the world, the secrets of the Torah were open to him. And he could tell people that there was not going to be anything to fear, that God was going to create a miracle. We know the names of other Rebbes told different people. We can give you a blessing, but if you want certainty, you want a guarantee, go to Lubavitch. As I told you, Rabbi Kaufman Zatzal was given a bracha with a guarantee, only from the Lubavitcher Rebbe. Kol haloimid Torah lishmo, zeichel l'dvarim harbe. May we merit to learn Torah Lishma as well.